I knew he was watching before I ever looked up. You can feel that kind of attention. It settles on your skin, warm and insistent like a held breath. I was standing at the kitchen counter, pretending to read a message on my phone, when the air behind me shifted. Not a sound, just that unmistakable awareness. My shoulders tightened, then relaxed. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. The reflection in the dark window told me everything I wasn't supposed to see. He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes steady. Not hungry. Not rushed. Just patient. Like he had all the time in the world to look at me. I told myself it meant nothing. That people look. That it was harmless. Still, my thumb stopped scrolling. My breathing changed. We weren't strangers. That was the problem. We'd been orbiting each other for weeks. Too many conversations that lingered. Too many silences that felt louder than words. I had learned the shape of his attention without ever touching him. The way his gaze stayed half a second too long. The way his voice softened when he said my name. And I had learned myself too. How I angled my body when he was near. How I dressed without admitting why. How I pretended not to notice the way my pulse reacted when he entered a room. That night I should have stepped away. I should have broken the spell by turning around, smiling politely, saying something safe. Instead, I stayed exactly where I was. I shifted my weight just slightly. Felt the floor cool beneath my bare feet. Let the silence stretch. I could almost hear his thoughts in the space between us. Slow, deliberate, restrained. My heart began to beat louder, as if it wanted him to hear it. I told myself I was doing nothing wrong. I wasn't inviting him. I wasn't encouraging anything. I was just standing there. But deep down, in the quiet place where honesty lives, I knew the truth. I was pretending not to notice him watching, because if I turned around, something would begin that I wasn't sure I could stop. The next day, I told myself I'd imagined it. That look. That silence. That pull in my chest that lingered long after he left the room. But imagination doesn't follow you. It showed up with me at work, in the way I caught myself checking reflections. It slipped into the quiet moments, when my mind should have been busy with anything else. And when I saw his name light up my phone that evening, my stomach tightened like it already knew the trouble ahead. Did I make you uncomfortable last night? The message was simple, careful, almost innocent. I stared at it longer than I should have. My thumb hovered, my heartbeat loud in my ears. The honest answer was no. The dangerous answer was that I hadn't wanted him to stop looking. No, I typed, then erased it. I didn't notice I replaced it with. The lie sat between us immediately, thin, fragile, electric. When we finally spoke face to face again, it was in the smallest moments. Passing each other in the hallway. Standing too close while waiting for coffee. Our conversations stayed polite, but something else moved underneath them. Like a current you only feel when you stop resisting. He didn't touch me. Not once. That somehow made it worse. Instead, there were glances, brief, loaded. A smile that never quite reached his eyes. A pause before he answered my questions, as if he were choosing every word with care. And me? I became hyper-aware of myself. The way my breath caught when he leaned in to speak. The heat that crept up my neck when his gaze dropped, just for a moment, to where my pulse betrayed me. I noticed how quiet I got around him. How my body seemed to lean toward his without permission. How silence between us felt fuller than conversation ever had. I also noticed the guilt. It arrived late like an afterthought, whispering reminders I didn't want to hear. Of lines I wasn't supposed to blur. Of reasons I should step back. But desire has its own logic. It doesn't argue. It waits. That night as I lay awake, replaying every look and almost word, one truth settled heavy in my chest. I wasn't pretending anymore. I wanted him to watch. Because I was already imagining what it would feel like if he came closer. After that, everything became charged with meaning. The way he said my name slower now. Like he was tasting it before letting it go. The way I caught him pausing when I entered a room. His attention flickering toward me before he corrected himself. We were careful. Almost painfully so. If someone else was around, we kept our distance. We laughed at the right moments. We talked about safe things. Normal things. But the moment we were alone, even briefly, the air shifted. Thickened. As if the walls themselves were holding their breath. One afternoon we found ourselves in the same room by accident. Or maybe not by accident at all. The door closed behind us with a sound that felt final, even though it wasn't locked. Neither of us moved. I could feel him before I saw him. His presence warm at my back, close enough that I was suddenly aware of my own breathing. I focused on something meaningless in front of me, afraid that if I turned around my face would give me away. "You don't have to pretend," he said quietly. My chest tightened. "Pretend what?" "That you don't know." The words were soft, not accusing, almost gentle. I swallowed. My pulse fluttered in places I didn't want to name. The space between us felt too small now, stretched thin by everything we weren't saying. I finally turned. Slowly, carefully. His eyes met mine, steady and dark, and for a moment the rest of the world disappeared. No past, no consequences, just the hum of something alive between us. He didn't reach for me, didn't crowd me. He just stood there, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him, close enough that my body responded before my mind could stop it. I hated how much I wanted to close the distance. I hated how natural it felt. My breath caught and I saw the flicker of reaction in his expression, just a tightening of his jaw, a restraint that mirrored my own. We stayed like that, suspended. Two people pretending not to cross a line that was already fading. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. The hardest part wasn't stopping myself from touching him. It was pretending that I didn't already feel his presence everywhere. After that moment, nothing was accidental anymore. If we ended up alone, it was because one of us lingered. If our hands brushed, it was because neither of us moved fast enough to avoid it. We became experts at almost touching, almost saying too much, almost losing control. The first time it happened, it was in the narrow space between the counter and the sink. I was rinsing a glass I didn't need, my back half turned, when he stepped in to pass behind me. "Sorry," he murmured. But he didn't move away. The space closed. Not fully, just enough. I felt the warmth of him at my shoulder, the subtle shift of his breath near my ear. My body reacted before my thoughts caught up. Skin tightening, heart speeding, a quiet rush that left me dizzy. I stayed still. So did he. Seconds stretched, heavy and slow. I could feel his hesitation like a question pressed against my spine. If I stepped forward, it would end. If I turned, it would change everything. I didn't do either. His hand lifted, then stopped. I felt the ghost of it near my waist, close enough to make my knees weak, not close enough to be undeniable. The restraint in that pause was almost unbearable. "You feel that too," he said softly. Not a question. I closed my eyes. "Yes," I whispered before I could stop myself. The word landed between us like a spark. His breath caught. Mine followed. The room felt suddenly too warm, too quiet, like the world had narrowed to that single fragile moment. Then footsteps in the distance. Reality knocking. He stepped back immediately as if burned. I opened my eyes, my pulse still racing, my body aching with something unfinished. We didn't look at each other after that. Didn't need to. Because once you admit the pull out loud, even just once, pretending becomes impossible. And I knew with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified me. The next time almost wouldn't be enough. After that, we stopped pretending it was accidental. Not out loud. Not in any way that could be pointed to or proven. But something in us shifted. An unspoken agreement that the tension no longer needed excuses. We didn't rush. That was the strange part. We slowed down. Every glance became deliberate. Every pause heavy with intention. He started standing closer when he spoke to me. Close enough that I could feel the heat of him through the air. I started meeting his eyes instead of looking away. Letting the silence stretch until it felt intimate instead of awkward. Felt dangerous in a quiet way. Like balancing on the edge of something sharp and beautiful. One evening the room was dim. Lit only by a lamp that softened everything it touched. We were alone again, truly alone this time. And neither of us pretended it was coincidence. "You're doing it again," he said softly. "Doing what?" I asked, even though my voice had already given me away. "Standing like that," he replied. "Like you're waiting." I should have stepped back. Instead, I breathed in, and felt my chest brush his. The contact was barely there. Almost nothing. But it sent a tremor through me so strong I had to steady myself. His hand came up slowly, stopping just short of my arm. He looked at me then, not searching, not hopeful. certain. As if he already knew the answer and was giving me one last chance to change it. I didn't. My skin prickled as his fingers finally made contact, light and hesitant, like he was afraid of how much it would mean. The touch was brief, careful, but it unraveled something in me all the same. I felt my resistance soften. My thoughts blur at the edges. This wasn't a mistake anymore. It was a choice made quietly 1 inch at a time. And as I stood there, caught between what I wanted and what I was risking, one truth pulsed through me louder than fear. I wasn't trying to stop this. I was just letting it happen slowly enough to convince myself I still could. After that first touch, distance became unbearable. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just impossible. Like trying to ignore a song once you finally learn the melody. We didn't talk about it. We didn't need to. The next time we were alone, our bodies remembered before our minds caught up. We stood closer without thinking. Our conversations thinned out, words dissolving into looks, into breaths held a second too long. I noticed everything then. The way his chest rose when I moved nearer. The way my own body leaned in, instinctive and unguarded. The way silence no longer felt like a pause but like permission. My guilt tried to surface. I felt it stir somewhere deep, reminding me of everything this wasn't supposed to be. But desire has a way of quieting other voices. It doesn't argue. It just shows up, patient and relentless. I should stop, I said once, barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he lifted his hand, slowly, deliberately, and brushed it along my arm. Not gripping, not claiming, just there, present, certain. Then stop, he said softly. I didn't. That was the moment something inside me gave in. Not with drama, not with urgency, but with a quiet surrender that felt almost peaceful. My breath deepened. My shoulders relaxed. I stepped closer until there was no longer any question about where I stood. His forehead rested against mine, our breaths tangling. The closeness was overwhelming in its simplicity. No rush, no demand, just the weight of what we were choosing. When his hand slid to my back, firm but restrained, I felt it everywhere. Heat spread through me, slow and heavy, settling into places I had tried not to acknowledge. I closed my eyes, not because I was afraid to look at him, but because I didn't want anything else to exist. And in that quiet, suspended moment, I understood something with terrifying clarity. Crossing the line wasn't a single step. It was the decision to stop pulling away. After that, everything felt louder inside me. My body noticed him before my mind did. The sound of his steps. The shift in the room when he arrived. The way my breath betrayed me whenever he stood too close, which was almost always now. We stopped pretending distance was possible. Not dramatically. Not recklessly. We still moved slowly, carefully, as if savoring the tension itself. But the restraint had changed. It wasn't about if anymore. It was about how long we could stay balanced on the edge. One night we were alone again, truly alone, and the silence felt different. Heavy. Expectant. I caught him watching me the way he always had, but this time I didn't turn away. I let him see me notice. My gaze held his. My breathing stayed unguarded. I felt exposed in a way that made my skin warm, my pulse flutter. There was no pretending left to hide behind. You know what you're doing, he said quietly. Yes, I answered. The honesty in my voice startled us both. He moved closer, slowly enough that I could have stopped him, that I should have stopped him. But my body leaned forward instead, closing the last fragile inches between us. His hand rose, cupping my jaw, not claiming, not forcing. Just steady. Anchoring. I felt the world narrow to the place where his thumb rested, warm and certain. When our foreheads touched again, it felt inevitable. Like gravity finally asserting itself. I could feel the conflict inside me then, desire pulling one way, guilt tugging the other. My chest tightened, my breath shallow, my thoughts blurring under the weight of how much I wanted this moment to last. This changes things, I whispered. I know, he said. Neither of us moved away. Because wanting had already changed everything. And watching each other struggle with that truth only made the pull stronger.